The Puma DV8 Nitro 2. 50 plus miles into this shoe. Is this everything that we think it is, or is this a flop? Let's talk about it. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed, watching content. Thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates and things of that sort. So without further ado, let's begin. Specs for the shoe, somewhere where you can see them. We don't necessarily need to go over every little spec about this shoe, but as per tradition, let's just look at the outsoles of the shoe at this point in time. And what we will hope after our analysis here is just to make sure that we don't have any major wear that's going to be of concern, because in this video I want to talk about three particular things I've analyzed with this shoe, and we'll go over them step by step when we get there. But yeah, without further ado, I guess let's kick it off. The things that I wanted to look at were my usual spots here. On the left foot, I see a little bit of the wear on the outer tread here. It's nothing too crazy at this time. Mixed conditions, whether it was like the snow, concrete, partial trail, partial rock, kind of gravelly sort of substance. It looks like we're burning a little bit of the rubber here on the side. Not too concerned at the moment. The tread is still intact. It's still fine. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do in the central area. Not too big of a deal. Holding up quite okay. The heel's also alright. The area where the foam has like almost direct contact with the ground, it's still holding up. I'm going to expect this to start taking some punctures and wear as we go along. How it's going to impact the shoe in the future is still to be determined. Next up, on our right foot, the area that's of interest to me is almost in this forefoot spot. So you can see those like teardrop tread pieces are sort of taking a bit of a blow, particularly this one right there. It's kind of getting a flattened, more polished approach to it after, I guess, the way I've been kind of pushing through on it. The outer area, again, is taking a bit of a beat down as well. Again, nothing of substantial damage, just a bit of polishing kind of going on. So as we continue running with this shoe, we'll probably begin to see a little bit more wear and tear as we go along. So the three things I wanted to talk about, I guess at this point you can decide whether they're negatives or positives based on how we talk about them. I think the first one's going to be a positive. Let's talk about the overall ride of the shoe and the consequence in my personal running experience with this shoe. So a lot of the times when I run in certain carbon plate shoes, I'm usually expecting some sort of ankle, peroneal tendon, soreness, sometimes pain, and in very extreme cases, I'm expecting, stress fractures, stress reactions of that sort. Just because the plate is such a, it's such a brunt sort of piece when you hit the ground in some of these shoes. And what's happening in the Puma is that usually when I'm done running in this shoe, I don't feel nearly as beat up as if I was running in something like the Boston 12 or like a Vaporfly Next% 2, where the shoe has, that nylon or actual carbon plate in the shoe, but has a lot more stiffness to it. So this shoe, in a way, has a lot more cushion than those. I don't know if it's exactly as stable as some of those shoes, but it definitely has the cushion, which in the long term, when you're using this for like an easy or recovery run, like my legs don't feel nearly as beat up while running in this thing, and I'm still able to get some kind of consistent, faster than usual pace if I'm trying to push for those particular numbers. Now at this point, I don't think I've run any sort of tempo work in this shoe. I've done a lot of the easy work. I've done like some treadmill recovery runs, and I feel pretty awesome after this shoe, whereas like I mentioned, like a Boston 12 or some other shoes, I'm a little bit more beat up. The legs require a little more foam rolling or some kind of recovery or stretching afterwards, where here, the wear is not so bad. So I like that in terms of body preservation because of the shoe's design and biomechanic. I guess the word I'd be looking for is like cooperation with you. So the shoe is built like for you in that kind of sense. It's not built to be like a fast shoe. It's built to complement you. It's probably what I'm looking for to say. So that's number one. Number two is going to be concerned more with what I talked about last week, which was this moisture absorption in the shoe. And I had a concern during my first couple of runs that the shoe would be absorbing a lot of moisture and be hard to sort of, I guess, dispose or like, flush out some of that fluid that gets stored up, whether it's your sweat, whether it's like snow on the ground, whether you're running in the rain. And as I'm feeling the shoe out here after like 4 hours after not running, the heel and the heel cup area of the shoe is still unusually drenched compared to a lot of other shoes I've had. And I guess we should make that point clear. There are other shoes that I've been running in which like dry off almost immediately because there's like a lack of material on them. So the sensation of moisture is far more minimal than something like this. But that being also said, I've had shoes that take significantly longer to dry and will ultimately take maybe even 24 hours to dry if you run in them. So one of those examples is like the Pegasus Turbo Shield 1, which is like the shoe that has the zipper in the boot. I'll post a picture of it here somewhere if I remember to. But that shoe, if I ran with it in like a snowy day, the shoe would not get soaked because it's wet. The shoe would get soaked because of like the sweat and moisture your feet build up. And you have to like open up the shoe and let it dry in this sort of way for a couple of hours before you can run in it again. And you almost have to do it for like 24 hours. Otherwise, the next day you run, you're going to have cold, sweaty feet before you even get off the ground. Whereas here, I'm feeling that sort of in this like, ankle kind of heel collar area where there's still some moisture. And it makes me think that the shoe is probably not good for a 2-a-day session unless you break the sessions for at least up to 6 to 8 hours in between and you keep the shoe somewhere, warm and dry where it can sort of evaporate and hopefully not like grow any sort of bacteria or anything of that sort. But, dry, cool, and just somewhere where it can dry properly. That's what I'm saying. And not like something you're going to like burn with this particular shoe. So that was, of course, one of the concerns I've had with it. And concern number 3 with this shoe. So things I've been reading from either people from the comment section or again from different mediums of forums that I've been looking and researching into the shoe is that the shoe tends to run flat after about 150 plus miles. So at this time, we're 50 in. The shoe's in pretty great shape. I actually really enjoy running in this shoe. It's not my top daily trainer of all time. It's probably in my list of top 5 if you had to like make me name them off the top of my head. But if the shoe does fall apart at 150 plus miles, I wonder how it's going to happen. Is it going to work like a lithium ion battery where the shoe is just going to be, pedal to the metal every single time you use it, and then there's just going to be one day where it's just no good, or we're going to feel that deterioration over time as a result of the foam breaking up, the outsole starting to fall apart. Like, I want to know if that's really the case in terms of the wear of the shoe in the long run, I would say. Because, yeah, the shoe's going to be awesome in the first couple of runs, but then what happens when we start breaking this tread and this traction on the shoe? What's going to happen if the upper starts tearing? Will it still be usable at that point? These are things I'm kind of concerned about. So 150 plus miles is going to be an important place, in my opinion, to start checking on what's going on with this shoe. And I think the last thing, this is going to be bonus item number 4, which probably should have been my first and foremost, most important concern, is something that happens while I'm running in this shoe. Not this particular one. I think it's this one more. It is this one, the left foot. When you're running on more, I guess, more debris on the road. It's like debris on the road's basically unavoidable, right? Even if you're running on like trails where there's like wood chips, there's gravel, things like that. The one thing that you're not going to be able to avoid is like debris basically getting stuck in between the treads of the shoes. But this shoe, I think, has a critical flaw that I'm trying to figure a workaround for, if not see how bad it's going to get before the shoe like really takes a major toll. You know what I mean? So if we look at this rubber area right here where my finger is, you're going to see that that rubber area is starting to get beaten up kind of. Actually, not kind of. It's really getting beat up right about there. And what's happening is I've been getting rocks stuck in this particular area of the shoe, which, okay, fine, rocks get stuck in shoes all the time, but what happens while you're running is that that rock starts kind of protruding at somewhere between your 3rd and 4th metatarsal, and it feels like the shoe has like one of those Nike AirPod bubbles or pods in the shoe, like shift over to the wrong side of your foot, and it almost causes your shoe to like sort of pronate to avoid smashing the rock. So you do kind of have to stop and, kick the shoe a couple of times, rip the rocks out if anything happens like that. So it's sort of an annoyance, and I think it's a design flaw that could be avoided had the tread come a little bit closer and this foam, I guess, design that's used to drain water or let water kind of run through the shoe. I guess it could run a little bit thinner, and I don't think it would be that much of a big deal, but at this point it's wide enough where it's starting to cause damage to the foam, and rocks will definitely get stuck in there if you're running in those sort of trail conditions. So, with that being said, the shoe scale right now, I like it. I don't hate the shoe for any sort of reason. Like I said, it's probably in my top 5 daily trainers since 2020. And it's not like the number one as of right now. We do have some clear-cut number ones that I guess we've talked about many times before. But it really is a good daily trainer. It's not like your usual running brand, at least in my opinion. I know, like, based on what I was watching the Olympic trials in Orlando, Puma has really got their name out there. Asics has their name out there. New Balance, Adidas, Nike, of course. Those are like maybe your top 5, top 6, I guess, like meccas of running, including Saucony and Brooks, you know, those guys as well. But basically, Puma is just such an unusual daily trainer for me to observe, but I can see why people like this shoe. And yes, Puma does have their place in the running world, and they've been super successful in like the track and field realm when I've been watching them. Now I see them more and more in the marathon as I'm like paying attention to it. It's like the phenomenon of like what you pay attention to is what you end up seeing all the time. So now like I always see Puma wherever I go. It's just kind of just hilarious. So yeah, at this point I like the shoe at 50 plus miles. I am concerned for, again, how this tread is going to fare in this particular area. If rocks are going to start damaging the overall, performance of the shoe. Is it going to start collapsing at 150 miles? Will this water moisture retention be an issue during the humid summer months? There's a lot of questions I still have to ask about that. So, again, that's my assessment of the shoe. If you agree or disagree with it, let me know in the comments below. If you have this shoe and you've run it past 150 plus miles, or you've compared it to other shoes and you have your different thoughts on it, let me know as well. I'm very curious to see what you guys think, as I'm still learning about this shoe by, just talking about it, getting feedback from you guys. So it's a pretty cool thing. So I'm liking the shoe as of right now. So I will leave the video here. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.